What's up, comic book fans? Pete here from Comic Books Transformed, where me and my good friend Brian discuss comics that have been adapted into movies and TV shows. Brian is not here, but it is Alien Day, and it is very important for us to always cover alien related comics or movies or TV shows at this point on this channel. We also do it over on the Lasser Cast, where me and Danny usually talk about something alien related. But today, you guys are in for a treat because I have my good friend Mike Bongiorno from Pop Culture Man Children who is here, and we're actually going to talk about a comic on Comic Books Transformed. Mike, thank you so much for being here, and you're the one that came up with the idea of discussing Alien, the illustrated story.
Yeah.
So I want to know, yeah, like how did this book come into your life? What happened?
I'll be 100% honest with you, but sadly, I can't give credit where it's due because I don't remember it. I think it was a reel or a TikTok
Okay.
of just some creator saying, "Hey, a lot of people don't know about this, but did you know that that Heavy Metal Magazine did an adaptation of Alien way in the beginning, and it's based on the screenplay, but it looks entirely unique." And I was like, and I think I saw that immediately, like went and bought it. And, Alien's such a small story. So it's such a quick little read.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And then earlier this week, you were like, "Hey, do you want to do something for Alien Day?" And, we've talked about the movies. We've, I was like, well, what haven't we done before?
Yes.
You did Alien Earth. You covered that. So I was like, okay, what haven't we done? I was like, oh, maybe this.
Yes. Yes. Well, I am really, really glad that you recommended this because this is an absolutely beautiful book.
Yeah.
And then I think the most exciting thing about this is if the Alien movie didn't exist, but somehow they had drawn this and written this, this would have been a standout comic that people would be referring to today. Like they'd just be like, this is one of the best sci-fi horror comics ever made.
Yes.
Yeah.
If not for the movie, I don't know where the movie was in production when this was being made. Because they do use facial features that look like the actors.
Exactly.
And the xenomorph is the xenomorph that we know. But other than that, it has its own visual language that's really not the same as Ridley Scott's. It really feels like a heavy metal-ized version of Alien, and there are moments in this that I think are better than in the film. Like they did it better here.
Yep. I agree 1000%. I think actually we should talk about those.
Yeah.
Let's get to that in like 2 seconds. But what I wanted to address was the idea of this being made before the movie was released, right? Because that's one thing I kept sort of struggling with. I was like, okay, it looks so much like the movie in some ways, but then there are ways where it doesn't look like the movie. And it's like, did someone see footage of the movie? Did someone read the screenplay and see imagery of the cast and everything like that? Like when was this made? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I mean, from Wikipedia, I know that originally they put 8 pages of it in Heavy Metal Magazine as like a preview. And then like a month or so later, they put another 10 pages. But then they must have known they had something special because then they put it out as a magazine.
Right.
And it was Heavy Metal Presents Alien.
Yeah.
And then the version you and I have is actually the first real trade version of it. And this was in 2012 or something. So it was lost for a while. So I don't know. There's some things in it. I mean, you probably have seen the first movie more than me, but there are some things in it that I think were not in the movie. And I'm like, was that something that was cut out that was in the script and then it never got in?
Right.
Maybe they just knew the actors' faces. So okay, so Sigourney Weaver's in this. We know what she looks like, but we don't know. They don't know what the performance is.
Yep.
That's possible too.
Yep.
I'm trying to think, are there any shots that are the same? Like where it's like, oh, that's the same shot. Some are, like the sleeping pods. I think
Yeah.
that's similar. Maybe they show like some kind of a preview.
Yeah. But okay, so there's actually a few things to talk about there that are really interesting. Like uh some of the stuff that looks like exactly like it does in the movie is like a panel like this. Now, this will be lame for people that are listening on a podcast, but for people on YouTube, you can see what I'm talking about. Like, there's this one shot where the face hugger falls out of like the rafters when they're
Mhm.
looking for it after it's come off of Kane's face. And I feel like that shot looks a lot like the comic. I mean, I'm sorry, like the movie. Then
Yeah,
if you look on another panel, there's like almost like dots on Kane's face, like he has an illness, and
yeah,
that's not the case in the movie at all.
yeah,
The differences, I'd say, are actually very subtle. Um, and then also there is the idea of how comics are made versus movies. I think
yeah.
a lot of people always think that you could just sort of like um, the what do you call that when you're like planning out a movie and you're making all pictures for it? What's that called again?
Oh, like storyboarding.
Storyboarding. Like I feel like a lot of people think that like comics could just be storyboards for movies and you could just add word bubbles to them, but the medium itself is a different way of storytelling than
Right,
film.
right, absolutely.
And I think the best example, this one example I love so very much, is when they show them going through levels of the ship,
Yeah.
and it's a panel. Let me see if I can find it, but it's like basically a panel where, um, like it's almost like the side of the ship has been cut out, and you can see the characters going down a
Yeah,
ladder.
the cross section.
Yeah, a cross section. I love that shot. Let me see if I can find it in here. But like the I feel like the differences are subtle
I
between the
don't know. I
movies.
might disagree a little bit
Okay, okay,
because I think there's a minimalism to the film, and I think heavy metal is a maximalism. Like think about the title card in the film, right? It's that very minimal. There's just the lines, and then they keep they sort of fade in, and then it just says alien. Compare that to the title on the comic book, which is just gigantic 2-page splash, and it's like this H.R. Geiger like bones and viscera alien. Like right off the bat, like this is so much more like quote unquote like hardcore than that.
yep,
There are these bold colors in this
yes,
that you don't really see. There's something monochromatic about the film, whereas
yep,
this is like really bold colors, really bold images. I mean,
yeah. Like
think
I think.
about yeah, go
Oh,
on.
go ahead. The very best thing of this book is the Walt Simonson artwork, right? But one thing that doesn't get as much credit in comics in general is the coloring. It's always
Yeah,
the artist and the writer, but the coloring in this book is incredible. And I think that like one of the things that makes this book so great are these like almost like full page. There are a couple of splash page images,
yeah,
but like look, this for instance is when the chest burster comes out of
yeah.
Kane.
I wanted to talk about this moment.
Yeah, yeah. Go
I
ahead.
mean, look at that. Look at
Yeah,
the way that they are interpreting that. It's amazing.
yeah. Yeah, it's so like epic in scale. It's a totally different sensation than from the movie,
It's
right?
almost like expressionistic, like
Yes,
expressionism. It's like, obviously the chest burster scene when it comes out of John Hurt's chest is like one of the famous scenes in sci-fi. But this is like, how does it make you feel? You know what I mean? Like this red and it's like they fuck around with the scale of the xenomorph in this a lot,
oh
but
yes, yeah,
but I think it's also not, but I think it's not to be read literally. You know what I mean? I don't think they're like don't care how big it is. I think there are moments where they're like, let's just make it really big, whether or not that would be scale accurate.
right.
And that moment, you know, like, I mean, the chest burster, it's crazy, it's violent, you're not expecting it. It's like this reverse, you know, rape. Well, I don't know if you can say that word on YouTube.
It's okay. We've said it on this channel. It's okay.
But the way that it's described, like, for those who aren't watching and are just listening, it's like it's a 2-page splash, and it's almost all red. So the blood is everything, and then it's and you know better than me, like, it's that thing where, like, they're showing it at different stages of the movement. So it's like there's one, and then a few inches later there's another one. So it's sort of showing the movement of it coming out of the chest, but it's like the most epic, huge thing, and it's just covered in red.
Yes.
It's so well done. It's so incredible.
Yes. Yes. And I think one thing that you mentioned, which is definitely worth talking about, is that the xenomorph itself is gigantic in some of these images. Now,
Yeah.
the xenomorph, like in the original movie and just in the movies in general, is very big to begin with. Like, it's always played by an actor that's like over 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
But in this, it really feels like a giant monster.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And
I found that page that has the like multiple panels where it's like a cross section. It's when the acid, when they cut the face hugger and the acid starts leaking through the ship, and so, you know, that's such an easy way to show the difference between filmmaking and telling a story in a comic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I point out the moment that I think is done better in this than in the film?
1,000%. Yes.
It's the moment where Dallas dies.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yes.
So there are no page numbers, but all right. So famously in the film, it's an effect that kind of doesn't work. It looks like the xenomorph just wants to give him a big hug. Like,
right.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I'm your friend, right?
Right.
I mean, it's a good jump scare, but it doesn't work. Whereas here, the way that it is depicted is like, it looks gigantic. It looks like, you know, the size of like a fucking, like, I mean, it's giant. I mean, look at it. And Dallas is so small in the image. It's just like, this guy's so dead. He's just so dead immediately.
Right.
Like, there's no chance.
Right. Well, I mean, you're right. That sequence is amazing. I mean, look at like Burke's death, right? Like in this sequence too. Like, that's another thing where it's like, it shows the tentacle kind of bringing him close.
Yeah.
And there's no dialogue or noise or anything in these 4 panels where the alien's tail is like skewering him and bringing it close to him, right?
Yeah.
And I always find that, like, in a comic, in a horror comic, if there's movement like that and then there's no dialogue and someone's getting killed, I always find that to be really chilling.
Yeah.
Like one example that, like, okay, so like let's say we're talking about this sequence right here in the comic where Burke gets killed and the tail's getting him, right?
Yeah.
In the movie, there's an equally unsettling part because he's making noises, like screams, as he's being attacked, and you just have a close up on the cat's face as it's watching what's going on.
Yeah.
So that unto it's like when violence happens in a movie and you're seeing something that's not related to the actual violence, but you're hearing the violence.
Yes.
That's really disturbing.
Right. Also, you got to think, I think in the movie makes the choice to kind of conceal the monster for quite a while. You know, when thinking of Burke's death in my memory, like, there's a lot of like just simple shots of like, here's a tail, you kind of don't totally see what's happening.
Right.
Whereas this, I mean, like, talk about the size of him. Look at the other page. It looks like it's gigantic.
Yes. It's insane. It's way bigger in this comic than it is in the movie.
So there's narration here, right? There's these little narration boxes.
Yes.
Do you think that is straight from Dan O'Bannon's screenplay?
Oh, that is such a good question.
By the way, I would say that I think the fact that this works so well is testament to how great that screenplay is and how simple it is.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, well, like let's talk about that for a second, right? So the screenplay for Alien, one of the interesting parts that you hear often described in documentaries about Alien is that every character was essentially like ambiguous as to what their gender was in the
Yes.
screenplay. So any character could have been a man or a woman. Ripley could have been a man, right? And I think maybe even initially they were going to have a man be Ripley, and then of course they picked Sigourney Weaver, and that's such a crucial part of Alien's success and its lore. You
Yeah.
know, but a line like that, it's hard to say because Archie Goodwin himself is like a veteran comic book writer and editor, and he worked for both Marvel and DC.
Mhm.
He worked for Heavy Metal, so like I could easily see him writing such a good line. But then I think for someone that made the movie Alien, like Dan O'Bannon,
Yeah.
Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett, um, I could give him credit too. So I don't know who came up with that line.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Um, one thing I want to talk about, and then I'm going to stop like hogging this so much, but I
Yeah.
think that what is interesting about this book is how thin it is.
Yes.
You'd think that like adapting Alien, this would be at least twice its size, but there's so much in Alien that is like in the moment experiencing what's happening. Like when they go to land on the planet, that takes like minutes for them to land in the movie.
Yeah.
Right. When Ripley's running through the ship and she has to like try to deactivate the self-destruct or get into the pod, like that all takes minutes of time. But in this, it's like a panel or two.
Right. Well, again, I think the screenplay, it's it's a very simple narrative, and
Yeah.
it's really but so it's very the screenplay asks of whoever the creator of the whatever the adaptation is to fill in a lot, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
like if not for Geiger's work, right? This could be not a classic movie. Like having that the xenomorph look the way it does with this great simple kind of haunted house kind of screenplay um is kind of what made it work.
Yes. I mean, I love watching documentaries on Alien,
Yeah.
and the creative force behind it is just insane. I think there's essentially like three different designers working on it. There's Giger for the Alien stuff. Then there's, I believe, Mobius for like some of the. Oh no, dude! I'm fucking mixing this up with Jodorowsky's Dune
Yes.
because he had Mobius and Giger.
Yes.
This just has Giger, and then it also has one other like sci-fi guy that essentially designed all the sort of like spaceship and human stuff.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and then you just have Ridley Scott, who like say what you will about Ridley Scott, but I feel like he can make such a beautiful, exciting to look at film.
Yeah. I'm not a huge Ridley Scott fan, but I think you're right. I think he is very much he has a great aesthetic view. I've always felt like if he has a good screenplay, he'll make a good movie. If he doesn't have a good screenplay, it's not going to be a good movie.
Right.
But he masterfully interpreted this screenplay.
Yes, 100%. And so like I want to keep kind of pointing out moments like of what you described where the comic maybe does it better. I think that like this sequence right here where we have Parker getting killed by the alien.
Yeah.
Like look at this. Another like there's no narration, there's no sound. The alien's got him and they just does a little piston thing right in his face. So disturbing and so effective. And then you just see Lambert's feet hanging there.
Yeah.
I feel like that's sort of more disturbing than what you see in the movie, which itself is disturbing too.
You know what? I have a new theory.
Go ahead.
I think maybe they let the let the creators of this comic watch the film once, and then they're working from their memory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because a
Yeah.
lot of it is like how they felt about these moments.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
vague recollections of it.
Yes. Yes. I agree. I agree. So, like, with that being said, I think we should still focus on some of the differences. Like, because, okay, here, actually, hold on. Let's point out that if we were going by just the screenplay itself, there are things that were in the screenplay that were even filmed but don't make it to the final movie.
Okay.
Like, there's that famous sequence where Ripley finds Dallas. You know about that scene?
Yeah.
Right? And essentially, it's like showing a different type of metamorphosis for the alien, where essentially it's turning him into an egg.
Okay. Oh no, you know what? I don't think I did know about that. I'm thinking of the sequence in Aliens where she finds Paul Reiser's character.
Oh yeah. What the hell's his name, too? Jesus Christ. It's bad on Alien Day. Like, on a normal day, I would know every single character's name from Aliens. Now I'm like, what the fuck's his name?
Is it Burke? No.
Who? Oh no, it is Burke. I've been calling Brett Burke. That's the problem. Paul Reiser is Burke. What's his face from like Twin Peaks is Brett.
Harry Dean Stanton is Brett.
Thank you. I always fucking forget Harry Dean Stanton's name whenever I'm talking about him. But I was gonna say there's a sequence in Alien that was cut out where it's like she finds Dallas and he's almost kind of cocooned like the people in Aliens, but the alien is basically like converting his body into an egg. That's a deleted scene. Yeah.
Yes, it's really different from what we've seen. A different,
right.
Yeah.
It would change the lore significantly, right? Another sequence that I think I've even seen footage of, but it's weird. It's like Ripley. There's a scene where it's almost like implying that like she was having casual sex with Dallas, and that's just sort of like a company thing where it's like you can kind of have sex with people on the ship just to like let off steam.
Right. So there's a conversation here in this comic book where Ash is being weird, and they don't know yet that he is a android. And Ripley says to what's her name? What's the name of the Lambert? Did you ever sleep with Ash? No.
Right.
Did you? No, I never got the impression he was interested. Neither did I. It's very, you know what it is? It's very like if you were living through the 60s, which we know Dan O'Bannon did, and you were imagining a future. I think you would imagine a much more like sexually open future where everyone just has sex.
Right.
It's just a casual like, oh, did you ever have sex with him? No, did you? Like, that's not in the film.
Right.
But it's interesting, like that's how they are getting at that he is an android.
Right. No, I agree. That part threw me off. I think there's like so many like little small details where you're like, wait a minute, I don't remember that from the screenplay. Like when they talk about the tracker, they say that like Ash made the tracker. I mean, I think they do say that in the movie, but then they kind of imply that like there's something off about it to where it's like picking up two signals. I don't think they do that in the movie itself.
No.
And then I'm trying to
think Brett makes the tracker.
Right. He definitely makes like the flamethrowers that they use.
Oh, right.
I mean, I'd have to like rewatch Alien just to make sure, but like that's kind of the cool part about this comic is that it gave me the sensation of watching Alien, but I was just able to read this like brief book. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But like another theme. What's that?
I just want to talk about this one image. There's an image where you see like the ship and the background. What I believe they've done is taken paper and like crumbled it and photographed it. So like the sky in the background is this sort of visual effect.
Yeah.
Of just crumbled paper.
Yeah, it's so. I know. I know. What you're talking about. It's like when their drop ship takes off of LV 426, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I see the effect you're talking about. Yeah, that is so cool.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there's lots of splash pages in this. This really has these moments of like, this is huge.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so let's talk about like the artist for a second. So the artist is Walter Simonson. People would also call him just Walt Simonson. He was the artist on Thor for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens with comics in general, right, is that you sort of have like the modern era, which is like sort of like post 2000s to now, right? And then you have, for a lot of characters, there'll be like specific eras where like really iconic artists worked on the title. And that's sort of like the definitive era. Like right now, there's a Daredevil TV show called Born Again, right? And the Born Again comic was drawn and written by Frank Miller in like the 80s.
Okay. Yeah.
And so there's always sort of like that time period. But so Walter Simonson kind of had his Thor run, which is like the equivalent of that, you know?
Oh, okay.
Just like beautiful Thor artwork where it's like this sort of like fantasy with like a little bit of science fiction, almost like Masters of the Universe type vibe, you know? And I like his artwork in this is so good. It's crazy.
I mean, look this page here when they first encounter the like look how small the human figures are.
Yes.
I mean, the scale of things. They really get scale in here.
Yes.
In this amazing way.
Yeah.
And I love the line work. It has a very sketchy, scratchy, scribbly kind of look, which gives you this sense of uncontrolled or uncertain. You know, like I love that look. It feels like it's done quickly, but it feels like, you know, like it could dissolve at any moment.
Yes. Like honestly, the combination of the way like what they choose to focus on and then the artwork and the coloring is really the best thing you could ever combine to make an Alien comic.
Yeah.
You know? I couldn't think of a better combination. I wanted to talk about, there was one other scene that I wanted to talk about, which is, I don't think this was ever filmed, but it was in an original version of the script where the way the movie was supposed to end was that the xenomorph was actually supposed to kill Ripley at the end. And then it was going to like leave a message. It was going to talk in Ripley's voice at the end and be like, this is Ripley. That was the way the movie was originally supposed to end.
Okay. See, I didn't think I knew that.
Yeah. So like when we were discussing this and looking this over, I was thinking, okay, well, maybe we'll have the Dallas and the Cocoon thing. Maybe we'll have the Ripley casual sex thing, or maybe we'll have that crazy ending at the end. But otherwise, none of those happened, and it stayed faithful to the original screenplay.
Yeah, but it's little things. It's little just changes.
Yes.
Like I don't like okay, so there's a moment in this where she's running at the end, it's the countdown's happening, and she comes upon like this mass, and then it is the xenomorph like tucked into itself, almost making an entirely different kind of shape.
Right.
And they do things like that in the film, but this is really visualized in a different way.
Yes, because Alien is very like claustrophobic, and this certainly can feel claustrophobic, but then it can also feel the exact opposite, where like the space is like for instance that scene with Dallas in the vents or whatever, like the tunnel itself seems way bigger there than it does in the movie.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. What I was going to say was, have you ever heard of other adaptations of Alien movies into comics?
Yes, but I haven't read them.
Yeah. Well, what did you hear about?
I know that didn't they do a comic book version of the original idea for Alien 3?
That's exactly what I was going to get at. Yes, yes.
I'd like to read that. That was William Gibson, right?
Right, right, right. And I think that's the weird version where they land in that one is like a space station, but it's made out of wood. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes. But
Yeah,
aren't Newt and
Hicks.
Hicks are live, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have not read that myself, but I'd love to check it out. Like, there's these weird comic adaptations of movies that you're like, oh, the franchise must be so beloved that they would make this, and that's one example. The other example I was thinking you probably know is like they adapted one of George Lucas's original screenplays for Star Wars.
Yes, I think I read that. I read.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
What did you
yeah.
think of that?
With Star Killer. I love things like that.
Yeah,
Especially because with that, they did something interesting where they cast the characters as actors. So it's almost like a different universe version of what it could look like.
yeah,
I'm like, I've said this before a lot on my show, but I'm not the biggest continuity person. I'm not the biggest canon person. I think that you allow yourself much more creativity when you loosen the reins on strict canon. Um, like I like Star Wars Visions. I know you covered that on this channel.
yeah.
Um, I like that in some of those. Like it's just its own version of Star Wars.
Right, right.
So I like that, and I like the idea of having all these different versions of things. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like I gotta be honest with you, like I know you loved it, but I was disappointed by Alien Earth. Only because
Oh,
I think that for me, Alien works best as like these simple stories like the original. But I feel like from maybe Prometheus on, now it's got one foot in this world of being super philosophical and thinking about life and Peter Pan and androids and cyborgs. And I feel like the show leans into that so much more. When I would be more happy with just a show with like action, with more action. You know what I
yeah,
mean? I mean,
yeah.
there's
Well,
things I like about that show. But I also felt like it took too long to get where we were going. Like I like the last couple episodes the best.
yeah. Well, I think the best episode of that show was the episode that's very similar to Alien, where it's like on the ship and it's when they get the xenomorph and it like
Yeah,
breaks
like
out.
the sequel episode.
Yeah, yeah.
I
But
agree.
yeah. But I actually agree with you on that Alien works when it's like a simplified story versus like when they try to like build upon this lore, right? Because it's interesting, like Aliens expands upon the lore of Alien,
Yeah,
but it doesn't get into this sort of like mythological, like these beings created the xenomorph, like this whole backstory. It just says that there's an alien queen that's laying the eggs, right?
right. Exactly.
And
Yeah,
and the expansion upon the lore is aesthetic stuff with like the space marines and then the introduction of these new characters. Uh, but I mean, like that's all that you necessarily need. Now, I mean, like telling the same story over and over again does get kind of boring.
I agree with
But
that too. I thought Romulus. I did
yeah,
not like Romulus as much as I wanted to like it because
right,
it actually felt like a kind of basic Hollywood Lego sequel. Like it had references to the original. It was basically a kind of remake of the first movie in a different way.
right,
And I ended up not liking it as much as I did. I gotta be honest, like I like Prometheus.
yeah.
Covenant is it's fine. I don't know. Maybe the last one I really love is one that people hate, which is the fourth one, Resurrection.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think
No,
it's
right,
it's a little too like self important now.
yeah. Yeah.
It's like,
Oh, that.
the xenomorph is involved with the creation of mankind itself. And it's like,
Yeah.
what are we doing? It's God? Like, what are we doing now?
Yes. I agree. It's gone a little too far in that regard. I don't know. I mean, it's like interesting subject matter, but the problem ultimately is that they had these interesting concepts in Prometheus, but then they had to sort of like tie it back into Alien as much as they could by the third act.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if it was a different movie with that same kind of aesthetic for the first two acts of the movie, that would be compelling and exciting unto itself, you know?
Yeah.
But then they had to make it be like Alien in the third act, and then essentially by tying it Covenant, the next part, like really made it.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Prometheus was like almost like it wanted to turn the Alien franchise into 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
And then the second one was just kind of just more of that, but getting closer to Alien. And then Romulus is basically just like a legacy sequel. This is maybe a cop-out answer, but if you had to ask me like what's the best Alien thing I've in the last like 10 years, my cop-out answer would be probably Predator Badlands. Because Wayland is the main company in it. Like I do like that they're just in the same cinematic universe now, without having to make big overt like mentions of it. Like that, like that movie is a Predator movie, but the Wayland Corporation and androids are like just part of that world, and it works so well. The relationship between Elle Fanning's android and the Yautja.
I'd agree with you on that too. I was not as big a fan of Romulus, or that's called Romulus. I think basically the two standout things from that were exciting to me was the android that they have in that and his relationship with his sister.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
And then that actor that plays the android, he was also in that movie The Long Walk, which I didn't really like that movie as much, but I thought he was really good in that. So I'm like, oh, he's one to follow, you know? But then I actually liked that when the woman gave birth to whatever that creature was after she was injected with that black goo from Prometheus, that essentially the creature was kind of like the newborn thing from Alien Resurrection, but it also looked like the engineer from Prometheus.
Yeah, I thought that was cool too. And it was very uncanny and creepy looking.
Right, exactly. I don't know, man. I like, I'm just trying to think what else to talk about, but like,
good question. Since this is Alien Day, and happy Alien Day to those who celebrate.
Yes.
Like, this is a very different franchise from things like Star Wars or something. But this franchise still has these legs all these years later. What do you think it is that, I mean, look, I think they could make 10 more bad Alien movies and it's not going to keep Alien from being important. So what do you think it is that makes it stick in our culture?
Beautiful question. I have a nice pretentious answer for you. I think that there are certain things aesthetically that excite people regardless of the context of it. Like, just looking at it excites people. And I think Giger's design is one of those things. The design of the xenomorph itself is one of those things. I think that, like, the reason why Spider-Man is one of the biggest, most influential superheroes ever is because Spider-Man aesthetically looks so cool.
Yeah.
So I think that aesthetically Alien, the way it looks, but so it's like almost like hardwired into our brains to think that it's cool and scary to look at. But then I think also the biological process of the alien itself is hardwired into us to be disturbing to us.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, do you have a similar answer, or do you feel something else?
I don't know. I posed the question, but I don't know if I have thought about it.
Oh, okay.
I think I agree with you. I think, first of all, I do think that Giger's visual of the xenomorph is just incredibly striking.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that there's something uncomfortable about the way it makes us feel. It's
Mm-hmm.
body horror. I mean, like, I don't think people talk about it like that. They talk about it more like a monster movie, but it is body horror. I mean, everything that happens with Kane,
King?
yeah, that's pure body horror. So I think that, and the time that it's coming out, I don't know. It imprints on us.
Yes. I also think that um there's certain like non-alien elements in it that are exciting and compelling unto themselves. Like the idea that androids themselves, and when you like cut open or damage an android, like this sort of like milkish fluid comes out of them.
Yes.
Like I think that the android itself is an interesting component. Then the idea of like these mega corporations being like the ruling, like almost like the monarchy or something in a world is
Yeah.
interesting unto itself, you know? And I think that like with all these different factors, it's just sort of like you have the best kind of thing like Wayland Utani. It's just like a cool name. It just clicks. The logo is interesting, like exciting to look at. Like the Android is interesting. Like, you know, all the different components that go into making this movie, it just so happens that each component is like a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
And they've essentially been milking that since 1979, you know?
I think the first two, because I think
Right.
one is a natural evolution and brings it into new, different territories. But then I think maybe you've said this on one of your many recordings about Alien, it creates like two different flavors that then they draw through. Like, is this more of an aliens thing or an alien thing?
Right. It's a good point. Yeah, and it always there's always a discussion of, oh, how do you rank the alien movies? And then it's always like, does Alien go as number one? Does Aliens go as number one? And on my other channel, I interviewed a guy named Adam Tierney who worked on a video game called Aliens Infestation. That video's on the Lastercast right now. You guys can go check that out on the Lastercast today. But he ranked Aliens as his number one, and then Alien was number two.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, you wouldn't have these video games without aliens.
Yes, yeah.
Because you'll have thousands of them crawling around.
Right.
And I love
games. Have you ever played Alien Isolation? Have you ever played that game?
No, but that's like the first movie, right? That's
right.
Like a game. I played Aliens Fireteam Elite, which was just a shoot 'em up of Alien. It was like Doom, Doom with aliens, and I love that game.
Right.
Yeah, there's a malleability to it because it's not like it's not like going back to Star Wars. Like there's the narrative there of Luke and Darth Vader. Like this is like there's just certain elements like you're in space, you're in a spaceship, and this kind of element. Like that's it. Like you could kind of put in anything you want.
Yes. And they often do, right? Like they make these weird choices, you know, like Alien Resurrection has all these interesting weird things that like they clone Ripley and they're trying to like harvest the xenomorph, and in Alien 3 they're on like a prison planet and all these men there. Like they're always kind of like tweaking the setting and the environment and stuff. But you know, there's always those beats that they always have to hit though, where the facehugger goes on someone, chest burster comes out, and usually pretty much like every single time they have to like eject the alien into space or like just essentially blow up whatever they're in, right?
Yes, that's true.
There's no way to like just straight up kill it. But I wanted to bring it back to the comic for a second. What cracked me up was how like quick they do the last scene.
Yeah.
You know, because like in that last scene, it's minutes of tension and stuff with Ripley trying to get into the spacesuit and eject the creature into space. And then like then there's the sort of the breath of relief after it's been ejected into space and she's just like sleeping in the cryopod. This one, it's like the second to last panel is the alien getting obliterated, and then it says, "Oh, she went into sleep," and it's just like her ship in space right here.
I know. They kind of. I do like to have her in her panties though, because I feel like that is a famous. That's a famous image from this film. An important image in many people's lives.
Yes, well, I know there was like a controversy of like, did they have to like digitally remove Sigourney Weaver's pubes or whatever from one of the shots in the film? I don't know. Maybe I'm being a perp. And then the other thing is, I love the explosion of the ship of the Nostromo right before that shot, because this is a good example, right? It's just it's a full page of the ship being blown up. In the movie, that sequence is quite a few seconds of like the ship just blowing up with multiple explosions.
Right.
You know, so that's just one of the differences right there. I don't know, man. I'm just really glad that you suggested this, and I kind of wish there were more comics like this that were this like visually exciting, but that were like original ideas. You know?
Yeah, I mean, there's been. Have you read a lot of Alien comics?
Yes.
So there's been a ton, right? I mean, like, what would you say is like your favorite of what you've read, like the best Alien stuff you've read?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say that the best Alien stuff I've read has been the more modern stuff, which is sort of the opposite of Star Wars adaptations. The more modern stuff is done by Marvel, since Disney has the rights to Alien.
Yeah.
And they've had this one writer on the Alien book, Philip Kennedy Johnson, who's the guy that's written like Marvel and DC books. He had a big run on Superman. That was like a really big run, and he had a run on Hulk. But his Alien stuff was really good. Have you ever read any other Alien stuff?
I don't. I read. Do you remember the comic that was like Batman versus Superman versus Alien versus Predator?
Of course, yeah.
Four of them together. I read that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That was ridiculous.
Yeah. I've read a couple of those where like the Xenomorph has fought like a specific hero, or the Predator has fought a specific hero. You know, yeah, that's a thing. And the one that gets the horde out the most is Godzilla. Like Godzilla's just like been around with everybody.
Well, Godzilla is this amazing thing that they do now. Like they've got Godzilla in The Great Gatsby, Godzilla. Like that's not a joke. That's a thing I saw recently. Godzilla and Romeo and Juliet.
The guy that I interviewed that's on the Lasser cast, he wrote that.
Oh, awesome. Wow. So I like that they just put Godzilla into everything.
Right. And you know, and then of course, like our favorites, they cross over the Ninja Turtles with a lot of stuff. And they also cross over Masters of the Universe, not as much, but like there's been some crossover with like DC and Masters of the Universe.
I was a fan of. It's hard to get your hands on it now, which is a shame. But the IDW Ghostbusters comics, I thought were really good, and they crossed. They did like a multiverse thing where they met like the real Ghostbusters and the Paul Feig female Ghostbuster team and Extreme Ghost. Like, they did a lot of that. Yeah.
And then they've crossed over where it's been like Ghostbusters and Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters and Transformers. Yeah. It comes down to ultimately which company has the rights to these franchises, right?
Yeah, you can make it happen.
Yeah, and Alien for a long time was owned by Dark Horse, but now Alien is owned by Disney by Marvel because Disney owns.
Because Disney owns everything.
Pretty much. Wait, Disney is Weyland Yutani.
Yes, exactly. It is.
Nice. Well, I mean, was there anything else you want to talk about with Alien: The Illustrated Story?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, I appreciate it. This went longer than I was expecting it to, and I just always love talking to you, Mike. So I'm just happy you're on our show.
I enjoyed being here.
Yeah. So then, just like you do for me on your show, if you want to plug Pop Culture Man Children, I think people should know about it.
So Pop Culture Man Children, PCMC, is my podcast. It comes out every Wednesday. It is a non-toxic fandom podcast. So we talk about movies, comics, TV, games, toys, fast food, everything in pop culture, but we are non-toxic. We don't we're critical of things. We make fun of things that suck, but we don't hate things because there are like minorities in it or whatever. And if you like this episode, you might like. We're doing an episode of my show in like a month or so, where we are going to do an episode on H.R. Geiger's Necronomicon, which
nice.
it's an art book. It's the first episode of
Yeah.
our show that has specifically been about art in that sense. But over my show, I'm trying to expand the kind of stuff that we've been doing.
Right.
And if you don't know H.R. Geiger, he's the artist who created the Xenomorph, and his book Necronomicon has the first images of what will become the Xenomorph. And what's really funny is, imagine the Xenomorph from Alien, but his head is an actual literal dick.
Oh wow, okay, nice.
Like it's, and I'm not joking. It is a human penis. And then so they were like, okay, this is great. We just got to change that part.
Right. Well, there's imagery of the alien where it looks like it's a skull too, right here, versus being straight. Yeah.
Especially the early, that first Alien toy that came out in '79. Of it was like one big giant doll toy.
Yeah.
And that you very, very much had the translucent dome at top and the skull underneath.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, guys, I highly recommend you check out Pop Culture Man Children. I've been on there a bunch of times, and I've enjoyed every conversation me and Mike have had. But he talks about stuff that we talk about on this channel, but it's not limited to current releases. It's going back to the 80s and beyond often,
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for being on, man, and happy Alien Day to all of you guys that are watching. If this is your first time here, I'd love it if you guys could subscribe, give the video a like. You can tell us if you've ever read this comic and what you think about it. But otherwise, yeah, me and Brian will be back next week, and you can find out which one of us casually had sex with the android.